What's up, everyone? Welcome in. Sunday night live stream. Fun times, I tell you. We got a lot to go over tonight. We're going to have some guests, and the guests are going to be you, the readers. Oh, whoops. I always have my other open. I always have my YouTube channel open, so I'm hearing it now in my ear. Okay. So anyway, we've got some of you guys coming on. A couple people. I hope they do. I don't know them. But you saw me put out a tweet. You saw me put out an Instagram post like, hey, if you want to join into the discussion about It Ends With Us, the movie that was released this weekend, and if you've seen both, I'd like to talk to you. And we had people respond. And we have two people coming on, one in 15 minutes and one in 30 minutes. And I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. Also, if you want to help the show, you want to donate in any way, everything is down below on how you can do that. I appreciate that. Any super chat money will, when we get to questions at the end, will be added. We'll immediately go to the front of the line. And there will be spoilers talked about, book and movie, although we'll get to that in about 15 minutes. Wanted to start off with what I always start off with. Number one thing, my shirt. Sure you all know this shirt. This is, well, I shouldn't say I'm sure you all know this because I don't know how many people watching this cared about movies in the 80s like I do. But this is the last scene of The Breakfast Club with John Bender walking off the football field. If I remember correctly, I thought I saw something recently. It was some sort of poll, and it wasn't some major poll, but it was some sort of poll that asked what was the defining image of a 1980s movie, and this was voted number one, which I can't really say I disagree with it. Or maybe it was the most recognizable scene from a movie in the 80s. I don't know. I just know this scene got number one. And I can't really say I disagree with it because it is an iconic scene. On Chris Soule's season of The Bachelor, even to bring this back to the Bachelor franchise, if you remember when he was back home in Iowa, they had him do this because Robert Mills, the executive producer, is a huge 80s movies buff, and he said he always wanted to include that in. So, yeah, holding the boombox up from what, Say Anything, right? That was in the top 5. I know that. Or maybe was that in the was it Say Anything in the 90s or was it 80s? I think it was, that might have been early 90s. But either way, that is obviously an iconic scene as well. But might have been 80s. Either way. That's this week's t-shirt. Did you see Thursday's t-shirt when I was interviewing Kate Casey? One of my favorite lines from Dumb and Dumber. Gonna hang by the bar, put out the vibe. That was Thursday's t-shirt. I don't know what's coming this week on this Thursday's. All right. I wanted to get into tomorrow night, episode 6. Jen and the men are in Seattle. We are at the episode before hometown dates. Kind of funny to think we're already there, but also kind of, yeah, it's just been there every Monday night and it's just kind of gone. But we are at the episode before hometowns. I do not know if tomorrow's episode ends with a rose ceremony and we see her 4 men of Devin and Marcus and Jonathan and Jeremy are the ones being advanced. A couple times they've done this episode before hometowns where they do a continuation, and then the beginning of next week's episodes, they end it, and then they start in hometowns. I don't know how they're doing it, but we all know that in tomorrow night's episode, or in Seattle, Grant goes home, Sam goes home, and Spencer goes home. Sam goes home, I believe, before the rose ceremony, just based off of the trailers and her going to his room at some point during the episode. So we've got that. There isn't a whole hell of a lot to talk about when it comes to that particular episode tomorrow night, because you kind of know what's happening. Marcus gets the Wizard of Oz Wicked one-on-one date, whatever you want to call it. It might be a promotion for the Wicked movie, which I saw in the trailers this weekend when I was at the movies. Wicked's coming out in November. So maybe there's going to be a tie-in, and maybe they'll consider it the Wicked date. But this was one of the dates that was spoiled in real time. It was the first date of the season, actually, that was spoiled in real time. If you were following along on my Twitter account, that day back in April of Marcus and Jen walking the Yellow Brick Road and all that stuff. And then there's a group date at a radio station that Jason and Molly are a part of. I tried to get Molly on the podcast tonight because she had some thoughts on It Ends With Us. She put it on her Instagram story, but unfortunately she was busy tonight. She has company and she couldn't do it. And then the other one-on-one date is Jeremy, and that's your episode. So moving on to Big Brother. There's going to be spoilers talked about right now because I'm all caught up. And I've seen who won HOH. I've seen what happens with noms. So if you don't want to know what happens in the next, 55 minutes when Big Brother starts, then I would tune away for the time being. Okay? So I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Somehow, some way, we've had 4 HOH competitions now this season. And Angela has won 2 of them. She wins tonight's HOH. I don't know how. It wasn't anything physical. It was one of those, I think, questions about your group, where they have everyone sitting at the side and 2 people go up and ask and have to answer a trivia question. And whoever wins then chooses the next 2 people to battle. And then until they get down to 1, well, Angela wins. I think it was one of those. And she has now won her second HOH in 4 HOH battles, so she's safe for the week. However, we know this is the last week that Quinn can use his upgrade power, and he does. So, essentially, the only power that Angela has this week is just, well, she has no power. She just can't be evicted because she's HOH. But she could have put people up, I guess. But Quinn would have just used his power and changed it. So I think it was just accepted that, hey, let's just let Quinn use the noms. There's no point for Angela to put up noms if Quinn can just take them down and put up his own. So he puts up MJ, Tucker, and Cedric. He puts up Cedric because I think Cedric volunteers himself, and Cedric basically says, I want someone to beat Tucker in Power Veto. Well, you won't be seeing it till Wednesday. But for Christ's sakes, Tucker won another Power Veto. So he's won the last 2 BBAI arenas and he's won the last 2 Power Vetoes. Now, we don't know until tomorrow if he's going to use it on himself or use it on somebody else. My guess is after his mistake last week, he's going to use it on himself, which means that Quinn, since he's control with his upgrade, puts up a replacement nom, and from everything I've read, he's going to put up Rabina. And he wants Rabina to be the target. I don't know where the votes are headed, but that's most likely what is going to happen. Tucker will use the Power Veto on himself, and Quinn will put up Rabina. Here's my thing about the whole Tucker dominating challenges. I don't know why Quinn puts him up, because unless they decide in Tuesday's episode, we're going to get Taylor and Cody and somebody else, a former winner, I guess, introducing a new rule. Unless they decide to get rid of the BBAI arena, putting Tucker up because you don't like him as a head of house, as a nomination, is giving him 2 chances every week to win either Power Veto or BBAI Arena. Just judging on what he's done in the first month of the show, the chances of him going 0 for 2 are slim and none, really. So if I'm the head of household and I want Tucker gone, I don't put him up for nomination. And I just hope that whoever wins Power of Veto takes themselves down, and then you put Tucker up. So he only has the BBAI arena. Why are we giving him, if everybody wants him gone in the house, America loves him. I don't know why, but why are we giving him 2 chances to take himself off every single week? Just give him 1. Don't put him up for nom and hope that Power of Veto, someone that in your alliance wins it so they can take themselves down, and then the head of household can put Tucker up. And he still has 1 chance. Now, I have a feeling BBAI Arena is going to be gone after this week. I just can't imagine they're keeping that around for another 4 12 weeks, or 8 weeks. It doesn't seem right. So we'll have to see. But if BBAI Arena sticks around, then you have to do that. If you want to get rid of Tucker as head of household, you cannot put him up for elimination, because now you give him a chance to win power of veto. And even if he doesn't win that, BBAI Arena, he's won the last 4. So I don't see what that's doing. It's not saying he's not going to win BBAI Arena, but just give him 1 chance instead of 2. So those are my thoughts. But looks to be, you will see tonight, Angela winning HOH, and then Quinn using his upgrade power, putting up Cedric and MJ and Tucker. And then you'll see on Wednesday, Tucker won power of veto. He will, I'm assuming, take himself off, and Quinn will replace him with Rubina, who she's having a showmance with, even though they don't think they've officially kissed. They just flirt all day long and hug each other, and she tempts him with kissing him. Kind of like it ends with us as we move into that. All right. I want to talk about this before our first guest comes on. There will be spoilers talked about in this. And I felt this, for me, this was kind of a homework assignment for me, because I'm very well aware of It Ends With Us, but I've never read the book. I knew nothing about it other than I knew there was domestic violence involved. So there will be some trigger points talking about this in this live stream, just so you're warned. That's the only thing I knew. I didn't know any of the people's names. I knew that Blake Lively was in it. I knew that a guy named Justin Baldoni was not only in it, but he is the director of the movie. And I never saw Jane. I had to go Google him. I had to Wikipedia him. I was like, has he been in anything that I've seen? His biggest role is on Jane the Virgin, which I never watched. So I had never even seen this guy before. As for the guy who plays Atlas, I'm totally blanking on his name. You saw him in the picture that I used for my thumbnail. I'm totally blanking on his name. But I had never seen anything that he's in. His biggest role is going on right now. He's in 1923, which is the prequel to Yellowstone. Don't watch that either. So I didn't know who either of the guys were, but I knew that this was about a woman in an abusive relationship. So I went in, that's all I knew. Did not read the book. I'm still not going to read the book, but I felt like this is a very pop culture movie. This is going to be probably the biggest movie of the weekend. And I wanted to watch it, and I wanted to see what all the hype was about, because if I'm not mistaken, Colleen Hoover wrote this book in 2016. I don't know when it took off. Was this one of those things that in 2016, and I'll probably ask my guests this because they know more about it than I do in terms of the book. Is this a book that took off? Like, was she New York Times bestseller right from the get-go? Or did it take a while for this to catch on? Like, did Oprah put it in her book club 3 or 4 years after it was released, and all of a sudden it took off? And it was obviously, once it took off, they said, well, we got to make this into a movie. So there's that. But I saw the movie knowing the only thing about it was about a woman who was in a abusive relationship. And my thoughts on the movie are, I thought it was excellent. I really, really liked it. And that's not any sort of bias towards Blake Lively because she's gorgeous and she's in my top 5. I thought she was phenomenal. And I don't say that a lot about a lot of acting that I see in movies. I don't sit there and dissect it too much. What's interesting to me is after I watched the movie is when I went online and I had saved a couple articles of what's different in It Ends With Us between the movie and the book. And I saved those until I wanted to see the movie first. I didn't want to go into the movie having read those. I wanted to see the movie first. So I read that after the fact. I read the Wikipedia plot for the book after I watched the movie. I already read the plot for It Starts With Us, which is the sequel to It Ends With Us. I probably won't watch, or I probably won't go read or even do audiobook of either movie or either book. I don't feel the need to. I feel like I have an idea of what happens. And for me, I just don't have the time to read I'm not much of a book reader, to be honest with you. I don't read books. I don't, unless they're about sports, wrestling, or gambling. It's really the only books I'll read about. Or, you know what? I also read books about television, anything in media related. So I will do that. So I'm waiting. We're going to get our first guest. I told them to sign in around 7:15. So hopefully they sign in soon and we'll bring them up. And I wanted to discuss it with them. And then we have someone coming on at 7:30. This is local time. So because the movie is very, and the other thing I did after I got back from watching the movie was I wanted to read the reviews because I wanted to see what critics think of it. And I'm very frustrated by movie critics. In fact, I can't stand them because I just think when you really break it down, a movie critic, I understand it's their job to critique movies, but frankly, I don't care what they think about a movie. It's not going to stop me from seeing it if they give it a bad review. Maybe a lot of you put a lot of stock into what other people think of a movie, but for me, let me see the movie and then I'll determine if I like it or not. Not you telling me whether I should or shouldn't like a movie. I've just always been that way. I don't care what critics think. So after I saw it, I wanted to see what the critics were saying. And every review that I read was negative. They didn't destroy the movie. They didn't give it a 1 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10. They were just getting into the weeds about the settings and the juxtaposition. I don't even know if they said juxtaposition, but you know what I'm saying? How critics have to go to that angle when they look at a movie where it's just like, look, I sat down and I watched the movie for however long it was, 1 hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours. And I sat there and I was like, okay, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very, very well done movie. Was it uncomfortable? Absolutely. Was it intense? Absolutely. The one thing that the critics seem to have an issue with was the promotion of the movie. And because this is a movie about domestic violence, they kind of are saying that I honestly didn't really understand the criticism. These people are obviously they have to promote the movie. They're doing red carpets about it. They're smiling on the red carpets. They're with their significant others. And somehow the critics took that as they are glorifying or romanticizing It Ends With Us. And I didn't see it that way. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Yes, it's a very heavy topic. But because it's a heavy topic, are you not supposed to promote it? That's where I'm having a disconnect with the critics, other than them telling me, oh, it wasn't really that good and this character wasn't deep and all this. I thought it was really good. Thought it was really well handled. And it, for something as heavy as a topic as this was, again, I don't understand. I don't really understand where the critics are coming from with this. I really don't. It didn't seem to be as bad as they made it out to be. Now, one of the other things that I think anybody that's been following this, you've watched the movie, read the book, and you're in the weeds on everything going on, is you know that there's a lot of off-screen drama happening. Dumois is posting about it. People.com has a whole article on it. Like, what is happening? Is there a rift between Blake Lively, who was an executive producer on the movie, and Justin Baldoni, who plays Ryle in the movie, is also the director of the movie? Is there a rift? Blake and Colleen Hoover, the author of the book, do not follow Justin anymore. Justin didn't appear at the New York screening. He's the director of the movie, and he didn't even appear at the New York screening. Wasn't there to introduce the movie at the New York screening. They're not taking pictures together on the red carpet. It's Blake with Ryan and Colleen with her mother. And why am I blanking on Atlas's actor name? Either way, It's him and his wife on the red carpet, and nobody, it's not like they're not taking any group photos together. So everybody seems to think that there is a rift happening. It's all over the entertainment sites are talking about what is going on and why is there a rift. And everything that you hear is all sources say, insiders tell us. So we don't really know what's true. But what the sources are saying is that apparently Justin Baldoni was difficult to work with as the director. That's what we're hearing. Now, he's had nothing but good things to say when he's been asked about the movie, even though he doesn't do, like I say, he's not doing anything in collaboration with Blake and Ryan and other people. But to hear that, I'm not going to sit here and say it's true or it's not. I have no idea. But that's the scuttlebutt, and that's the drama. Now, there are other people that are saying this drama is getting people even more interested in the movie because is this a stunt for publicity? Do they want people to think that Blake and Justin don't get along off camera, which makes them want to go see the movie even more? I mean, I guess it's a possibility. I don't see it that way, but I guess anything is possible. But it does seem weird that Blake Lively, Colleen Hoover, the author of the book, and the guy that plays Atlas all have unfollowed Justin on Instagram. How much do we put into unfollows on Instagram? I don't know. But that does seem weird. It does seem weird that the director of the movie was not at the New York premiere screening of the movie where he could introduce it. It was his movie. He directed it. He's not there. Rumors about he was sick. Okay. But coupled with everything else, it really does seem like there's something going on. But what? I have no idea. And I'm curious to what others think. I don't know why the person who said they were going to sign in at 8:15. Let me check. I mean, it's too late. It's not necessarily too late now, but I wish they would have signed in when they said they were going to, because we have someone coming on at 7:30 in about 7 minutes. So let me just look at some of your questions or any sort of comments that we have here. And we get, yes, Brandon Sklener. Is that how you pronounce his name? Brandon Sklener. He plays Atlas in the movie. And it was just, I like, again, this isn't any bias towards Blake Lively, but I think her performance is so good in this movie for such a heavy topic. That couldn't have been easy to do. I can't imagine anybody in that role would be easy to act that out. So let me let me bring this one up. Had to have been a disagreements about the script that got overruled by the producer, Blake Lively. Well, I mean, I guess that's possible, but Justin's the director. So wouldn't a director overrule the EP on the movie? And there were some things in the script that apparently was put in there by Ryan Reynolds. The rooftop scene apparently was written by Ryan Reynolds, and the screenwriter for the movie didn't know that until Blake said it in an interview. So that is a little bit odd. Why is Ryan Reynolds writing scenes for movies that he's not in, nor has credit in? But then again, in my eyes, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively can't do anything wrong. So no, I'm kidding. But I did want to play this clip, and this is from a pop culture Instagram account that took it from a TikTok account, and this is a 1-minute clip of Blake Lively talking about her role in the movie and the heaviness of it and working with Justin. So let me play this clip for you. Okay, you guys are saying that there's no sound. Not sure why there's no sound on this. So, unfortunately, sorry about that. I don't know why there's no sound. There should have been sound, unless, let me see if I bring it up and go here. Oh, whoops. Hold on. Why wouldn't there be sound on this? The sound thing is fully up. So, yeah, I don't know. Sorry about that. Anyway, they asked her about Justin and she kind of avoided the question and just went into talking about how there is a little bit more depth here and you understand why, because we're dealing with domestic violence. Like, look, as an open book, like I've never been in a relationship that had any domestic violence in it. But we know that people that are in relationships like that or have been in the past, we know it's just not like it happens one time and everybody leaves. Clearly, we know that people stay in relationships that are unhealthy, even abusive ones. And what she's saying in that clip is you see why her character, Lily, stays with Ryle, played by Justin. Like, the movie explains or it gives you an idea, even though you as a viewer are watching it thinking, my gosh, why doesn't she leave him? Why doesn't she get it? Now, the way they also show the abuse in the movie is also, for me, and this is going to be a spoiler about the movie. There's basically three instances that of abuse in the movie. But the first two instances, they cut away from the actual abuse. So me, as someone who's never read the book, but knew this was about abuse, I said to myself in the theater, I'm thinking, wait, he didn't really do anything. Or it could be interpreted this way. But it wasn't until we got to the third abuse where Blake, Lily, had the visions that played out on screen and they showed you exactly what happened. So I thought that was a very interesting way to do it. So I want to bring on somebody right now that answered the call that wanted to be a guest on this particular live stream. Her name is Kimry. Kimry, how are you?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Good. And you are somebody that responded and said you wanted to come on and talk about It Ends With Us. And you are somebody that has read the book and seen the movie, correct?
Yeah, I saw it today, actually.
Okay. So I wanted to initially get your thoughts on, not necessarily did you like the book better, because I know you probably did, just because most people do. There's just more that can be covered in a book than in a 2-hour movie. But
Sure.
I want your overall thoughts on what you thought of the movie in relation to the book.
Well, I took some notes actually because that's just who I am as a
Okay.
person. And I was chatting with a girlfriend of mine from high school, and we had a book club together. So when we read this book a couple of years ago, we kind of discuss the things that we liked about it and what were different between the book and the movie. But for me, after having kids, I have like the memory of a goldfish, so it's good for me to not be able to remember exactly everything the way that it was, so that I'm not super critiquing everything.
Can
But
I
I
just step in real quick? The book was released in 2016, and I asked this at the beginning of the live stream because I don't know the answer. Was this one of these things that it went New York Times bestseller right off the bat, or did it take a couple years and Oprah put it on her book list? Like, why did this book take off, and what was the reasoning behind it? Do you know?
I think it was a COVID thing.
Oh, okay.
Like people found it during COVID and then started
Hmm.
talking about it on TikTok, and then it like exploded, I think is what I
So it
remember.
wasn't announced it was going to be a movie until it exploded in 2020, roughly.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, and she has like other, have you read any Colleen
No,
Hoover books?
no.
Okay. You're not a
But
Colleen
I know
Hoover
she has other
girly.
ones. Yeah, I know she
Yeah.
has other ones that are New York Times bestsellers, but I've never read them.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and like Verity is probably her biggest book that she has, which everyone has been yelling at her for like years now to make that one into a movie. But then this one, I'm not sure why was chosen before that.
Hmm.
And I think it may have been because of Justin Baldoni. I think that he kind of spearheaded this whole thing into making it into what it was. And I definitely want to talk to you about that and your thoughts
Yeah,
about
yeah,
all of the drama that's going on. But the difference between the book and the movie are minor. I mean, like you said, they can't
yeah.
really fit everything into a 2-hour movie, but there were a couple of things that I would have liked to have seen. I don't know if we're really getting into spoilers here or not.
Yeah, no, I said we will discuss the spoilers and we will discuss, because after the movie is when I had saved a couple articles that said the differences between the book and the movie, but I didn't read those until after I saw the movie. And I
Okay.
guess, like you said, it seemed minor. Not because the main point of the movie was not taken out of the main point of the book was not taken out of the movie. There were things that were changed, but to me, having not read the book, it didn't seem like, oh, if you read the book, you were going to be so disappointed. I didn't,
No.
The change of the name of his restaurant. Okay, big deal. Not a big deal. I guess I think one of the things was the ages of them in the book. I think Lily is 23 and Ryle is about 30. In this one, they were older. And Justin said, I read an interview with him where Justin said, I didn't want this to be about a 23-year-old domestic violence survivor. I wanted it to be more adult. I'm fine with that. So I'm fine with the ages. What was the other thing?
I liked how she mentioned that kind of about whenever she asked him, like, are you happy? She mentioned the fact that, as women, we have like a biological, time clock, and, the pressure was kind of put on the relationship with his sister having just had the baby and everything. I liked that. So it kind of brought it around to where it made more sense that they were older. I also like during the photo, like all of the photos that they posted during the filming of her outfits, and everybody was talking about how crazy she looked. I really didn't feel like I would have noticed that as much if they hadn't have talked about it. Of course, she's a style icon and like we love everything that she wears, but this time, I mean, it did look a little bit quirky. I'll say that, but I don't think I would have cared that much before, but I definitely paid more attention to it just because it was something in the back of my mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, her outfits were not the most flattering, but I was like, that didn't take away from the movie for me.
No.
I think one of the biggest things that I read that was obviously, having not read the book and you read the book, you'll know this, Ellen DeGeneres plays a big role in the book, and it's just not in the movie very much. They do make a reference to it when young Lily and young Atlas are on the couch watching an Ellen DeGeneres episode, but again, something totally understandable because I read from Colleen Hoover and the screenwriter. They said, look, ultimately this movie isn't about Ellen. And we just couldn't, when you have a 2-hour movie, you can't put the time that we can into a book about how her journal entries and even after the first abuse from Ryle played a major role in, her coming forward and talking about it. They just couldn't focus on that in a movie. So again, something that while it was big in the book, I don't think it ultimately affected the outcome of the movie.
No, the outcome, no. I
or
did
the enjoyment of it. I don't know.
No, but it was a kind of a big deal in the book. So it was something that you were kind of waiting for them to discuss, if that makes sense. Not necessarily that it really interfered with how the story was told, but it's just like, oh, I was waiting for that to happen. A couple other things that I wrote down. The time that she spent at his house, whenever at Atlas's house, whenever the abuse had happened and she was kind of going to make a run for it. In the book, she stayed there a really long time. I can't remember exactly how long it was, but I want to say around like 2 weeks or something. In the movie, they kind of fast forwarded a lot of things to make it make sense. Like time passed really quickly. And while she was staying at the house, she made really good friends with a lot of his employees and people that he worked with at the restaurant, and kind of started to realize and understand that like, oh, there is life outside of like my niche and my network. And like, I can make other friends. I can start over. It's not over for me at this time. And I kind of missed out on that a little bit. And then let me see what else I wrote down.
What about this one? This is what I read was a difference in the book. After the first abuse, in the movie, it was a different meal. Again, it was just, I think in the book, it was casserole. This one, it was something else. In the book, she tells him after the first physical contact, you do that again and I'm leaving you. In the movie, she didn't say that. We don't hear her say, I'm leaving you if you do this to me again. Again, something different, but we still got the picture of what was happening. This was a woman who was abused and did not want to leave him for reasons that many women who have been abused we know everyone just doesn't leave after the first time. I mean, we just know it doesn't. I don't know anybody personally that's been involved in a domestic violence relationship, but I just, having read stories and, on the internet, we just know it happens. So,
Sure.
what about that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice that. I kind of felt like in the book, they really did a good job kind of letting you painting the picture of what was happening, but not letting you know to what extent it was getting to, so that you kind of questioned yourself a bit while reading it. Like maybe it's not as bad. And I'm not saying that any situation is
Yeah.
okay, but you kind of weren't sure about what level it was getting to. And so I'm wondering if maybe during the movie, they kind of wanted to paint that same picture in a way.
Yeah, I think the way I kind of liked the way they did it because it had me questioning, saying,
Sure.
well, wait, did
Yeah.
he even hit her? Like, wait a second. I
Hmm.
thought he abused her.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the scene cuts like right when the he pulls the
Hmm.
thing out of
Hmm.
the oven, and then right before on the staircase
Hmm.
we see them scuffling, and then the next scene is her in bed recovering with a crack in her head.
Sure.
um
Yeah.
so for me, I was just like, wait, I know it is, but are they making it a fine line to where you have to determine how bad it is? And it wasn't until the attempted rape scene and then the subsequent hospital visit where they go back and they show us what happened. And I was like, oh, got it.
Hmm.
And I thought it was just an interesting way that they
Well,
showed it.
there's a lot of internal dialogue in the movie or in the book, where she's like kind of wrestling with her self and trying to talk about, this happened, and then no, trying to paint it this way and changing things around a bit, and
Hmm.
then kind of like gaslighting herself a bit. So I feel like maybe that's probably difficult to do in a movie. So that was kind of my thought. And I thought they did a good job with that. I wasn't like bothered that they changed that too much. I think that was kind of necessary to the story. I did write down though that a big thing that I missed out on was the husband of his sister. I can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
The
I know
guy
I
that
know it's Hassan Minaj. He's a comedian, but
yeah, he
yeah.
he was so sweet. Well, in the book, he had kind of a big hero moment, and I was waiting for that to happen too. After she has the baby, and I was like wondering, is this happen in the second one or the first one? And I talked to my girlfriend. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's the first one. They have the baby, and she goes to their house. Remember, their neighbors, and the baby girls play together quite often. And Ryle comes over to visit the baby, and the husband makes it clear to Ryle that like you better behave yourself if you're going to be in our home, and has this big moment of like he chose a side and he chose the right one. And I just loved so much that everyone was so supportive of her. And it really did a good job in the movie showing that his sister was on her team, but there were more people in the book for sure.
Well, after I got home, I read, reviews. I read the plot line for the book on Wikipedia, and I read the plot line for It Starts With Us.
Hmm.
That sounds like from It Starts With Us.
It could be. It could.
Yeah.
I read them back to back.
Okay. It sounds like
But
I think that scene might have been where the husband of the sister plays a big role. That sounds like,
hmm
because I know when It Starts With Us, that's where the first major I believe the first abuse in that book happens. She gets home from her date with Atlas.
hmm
Alyssa, her friend, is watching
that
Emerson,
sounds right. Yeah.
and then he's there. And when he comes home, he realizes that Emerson's middle name is Dory, which stemmed from Finding Nemo, which was Ellen DeGeneres, who played Dory, and all this stuff. And that's where he flips out, and he's like, "That's why you named our daughter middle name Dory, because you wanted to remind you of Atlas."
Well, the
And that's where
timeline was a little bit different because in the book, I think that she's strolling the baby, and it's a smaller baby, like one that would be in a carriage, like laying on its back.
yeah.
And that's when Atlas sees her, and he says, "I saw you, I did." But that's the time that I think that he comes up to her. I can't remember exactly, but the baby is too old in the movie from that I watched today to have fit the timeline of the book. So I think they may have jumped around a bit. That's why it
Gotcha.
was confusing. Yeah.
Okay, one of the biggest criticisms that it has gotten is it romanticizes domestic violence. I didn't see that at all. I don't see how this romanticizes it because I'm guessing 90% of the people that went and saw this movie either read the book or were very well aware what they were going to see. Even
Mhm.
me, who had never read the book, the only thing I knew about the It Ends With Us story was it was about an abusive relationship. Now, was it uncomfortable to watch that scene? Yeah. Was it intense? Yes. But I thought they handled it about as well as you can for a movie that's dealing with domestic violence. I don't think they were. I think people are complaining that Justin Baldoni was they're relying on his looks too much and he was so good looking and that's why she stayed with him. And I was like, no, I didn't look at it that way. I thought the scene was handled as well as it could be handled for such a difficult scene. You know, an attempted rape scene in a movie is not going to be fun for anybody involved. And her reactions afterwards, where she literally asked for a divorce as she's in the hospital and just delivered her baby. Like, I didn't think they romanticized domestic violence at all. Did you?
No, I didn't think so. And in the book, I felt the same way. I do think that, like you were talking about how handsome he is, it was interesting to me. And in our group chat, me and my girlfriends, we were talking about how he is so handsome, but when the abuse starts to happen, he starts to look different. There's just something about him that looks dark and disheveled and not put together. And I think that was obviously purposeful. And I think he did a great job um, playing the character, but that's part of it. That's the way that it was written. He's supposed to be like handsome and have all of the things, and he's checking all of her boxes. And because of that, it's confusing to her why he could also do this, because how can you be both of those things at the same time? That's intentional.
Yeah, and I'm guessing anybody who's been in a abusive relationship and watched this movie, it's probably one triggering for them, but
Mhm.
two, I think like the way they told this story and the way that she did end up standing up for herself and leaving her abuser. I mean, I just don't think how people can. I don't understand how people can take this out of this and come out of this as some sort of negative for domestic violence survivors. You know, I thought this was, if anything, it was a woman empowerment movie. Now, one of the criticisms that I did read was the promotion of the movie as chick flick, rom com, girls' night out. Like, if they're promoting it like that, then no, it's not that. And I hope people don't go into it thinking this is a chick flick or a rom com. But
Sure.
like I said, I'm guessing 90% of the people that went to see this movie already knew what they were getting into going into that theater. So I, I haven't watched enough red carpet stuff. It seems like they're addressing every issue on the red carpet. Um, I don't know. Have you noticed anything in the promotion of this movie that they're promoting it as fluff, girls' night out movie, chick flick, rom com? I have you seen
No,
any of that?
well, I have not, but my argument to anybody that would bring that up would be the whole Barbenheimer situation, because everyone was talking about how funny it was that they were competing against each other in the box office and making light of it on the red carpet, and they were making jokes about each other and all of these things. And I didn't see Oppenheimer, but I'm pretty sure it's about like nuclear warfare. It's a
Yeah,
pretty serious movie, so I
yeah.
don't feel like if they can make light of things, then what's the difference? And I don't necessarily feel like anyone's making light of the situation, but every there's a thing about Blake Lively that like all of us girls love. We love her hair, we love her face, we love the way that she dresses, we want to be her. So anytime she does something, we just want to watch every inch of it. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with like dissecting that in a positive way and not taking away from, the seriousness of the character.
How did you think that she was in the movie? Did you love her performance like I
Oh,
did? I
yeah.
thought she was excellent. Excellent.
I mean, I've always thought that she doesn't get the credit that she deserves. I thought Age of Adeline was one of the best movies I've ever seen. It was such a beautiful movie. And I don't think that she's ever really been like Oscar contention type of actress for some reason, but I feel like she really proved herself in this one. And I mean, this was the kind of film that I forgot that that's who she was. And that's when, like I've seen people say that if you can forget that that is Denzel Washington on screen, that's how you know that that's a good actor. And you feel that way anytime you see Denzel in a film. Like I forget that that's who that is. And I felt that way with Blake today. So I thought that she did amazing. Justin Baldoni was easier for me because I really haven't seen a ton of his stuff.
I hadn't seen
So
any of his stuff.
yeah,
I
it makes it
had to
hard.
Wikipedia him. I didn't know. I mean, his biggest thing was he had a main role on Jane the Virgin, that TV show. Never watched it, so I had no
Sure.
idea. I didn't even know who Atlas was. I never had seen him before.
My husband said he liked him in 1923.
Yeah,
and he said
what
he
I
was really
realized
good.
he was in. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay. And so here's my question about the book. In the movie, they use flashbacks to let us see young Lily and young Atlas. How does it work in the book? Is it a timeline piece where it's just young Atlas, young Lily, and then all of a sudden it skips ahead and the last half of the book is them as adults in present day? Or how do they do it in the book?
I don't remember exactly how it works, but I do know that they like reference a lot of things that happen in the childhood pretty often. And so I think it skips back and forth, like one chapter's this, one chapter's that. I can't remember though. It's been a few years since I read the book, but I do remember it being like when something would happen in the present day, it would flash back to how it kind of tied back to what happened back then.
Did you read it or did you audiobook it?
I actually read that one, which is surprising for me because I'm an audiobook type of gal, but my mom gave me the book, so I read it.
Okay, so when it is flashing back, does it have like a clear mark of, or you're reading it and you're realizing, okay, now she's flashing back? Does it start on a new page? Okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm not going to read the book. It's too long. Even if I did audiobook, I heard the audiobook's 9 hours. I don't have the time. And I feel like I know the main part. And now that I've seen the movie, it's just like, look, I get it. I don't need to go back and read it because even if I think the book was probably better, and like any book, it's just you have so much more time to tell a story in a book than you do in a 2-hour movie. So I get it. But all the things that I did read, the changes, instead of Bibbs, better in Boston, the restaurant is called Root, which still made sense. It's not like they just randomly made up some name. So I get that. Something I talked about before you hopped on, the off-screen drama that's happening right now in the promotion of this movie, that Colleen and Brandon and Blake do not follow Justin anymore on Instagram, and everybody's talking about it. Is there a rift? Is something going on? The things that we do here, Justin was difficult to work with on set. There were clashes and all this. It does seem weird that those three are not following him on Instagram. It does seem weird that the director of the movie did not show up to the New York screening and introduce it to people. Not that you might have any insight, but what are your thoughts on the off-screen drama that is happening?
Well, I will say that I think it's feeding some of us from the drama that happened last year with Harry Styles and spinning on that other guy and all of that stuff. It feels very similar to that.
Yeah, that's right. Forgot about that.
That was so fun. And when we were speculating about all of those things, so it's kind of feels similar to that a bit. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell. That kind of makes me feel like there was some sort of argument happening about, how serious the content is and, wanting to take things seriously. And maybe someone else had a different idea. And I think it was his first time directing. So maybe he got a little big for his britches. I don't know. I did see some footage of when they were acting, and it looked like Blake was trying to correct his body language before they kind of embraced for a hug or a kiss or something. But you never know. That could just be regular stuff, or maybe let's get more comfortable this way or something. And they just run with everything. Who knows? I do feel like there's some drama happening though, for sure. It seems a bit odd.
Yeah, something is happening. Now, Blake and Colleen are, singing the praises of the movie. And they even said, if you read the book, we think the movie, you will like the movie. And if you've only seen the movie, we think if you go back and read the book, you'll like the book as well. It's all there. They stuck true to it as much as they could. I know you said you don't remember all the major details of the book, but the one difference that I read in one of the articles about the ending, I thought I read that the book's ending made it pretty clear that Atlas and Lily were now going to attempt to date, whereas the movie left it a little more open-ended, and they had just run into each other in Boston. He asked her if she's single, or maybe she asked him, are you single? And he said, yeah. But It seemed like the movie left it a little more open-ended than the book, or do you not remember how the book left
No,
it?
that's definitely true. And I think the reason because of that is that this book, like I said, exploded during COVID. People found it kind of later. And then they started asking her to make a sequel to it. And so she started the second book because there was so much, fanfare around it. So the
Mm.
first book was really tied up really well. Like it could have just been the end. And then the second one was written. So now I think that, they're obviously going to make a second movie. It's been such a hit that they left it a little bit more open ended than the book did. Because it felt final to me, the book. But I was
Really? Okay.
excited to read. I was excited to read the second one.
Was the
But
second one as
wasn't for
good as the
me.
first book?
I read them like in conjunction with each other at the same exact time. I finished one and then started the other one. So
So it's
it
almost like
felt
it's almost like
one
one
piece.
long book. Yeah.
Yes, to me. I didn't really feel any type of way. I would have been sad if I had to wait for the second book to come out, knowing it was coming and it wasn't ready to read. Because I just enjoyed the story so much, but I didn't necessarily feel like the story wasn't told all the way through.
Is there anything that was in the movie that wasn't in the book? Did they like add any
Mm.
scenes or just make, obviously things were changed, but I'm talking about something that was in the movie that was like, that wasn't anywhere in the book. They just threw that in there.
No, I don't remember that. I was really just trying to think of what was missing.
Yeah.
I do remember the birthday party from Alyssa's birthday party being kind of a bigger deal than it was.
Yeah.
So that was something. But as far as like other things that, were left added in, I don't really remember that at all now.
How did you think when you knew what was coming with the third abuse, the attempted rape? How did you think they did in handling it? Were you squirming in your chair watching it? Like, how did you feel that whole scene played out?
Oh, my girlfriend's texting me. Hi, Kendra, you're watching. She says the magazine article was not in the book.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
No. Yes,
What
and she's
something
right about
was in
that.
the book about it where he
So
went there that caused that third
he
abuse.
found out about the tattoo on her neck because of he was looking through all of her
Oh,
stories and things that she had written down, her letters to Ellen.
so he went into her journal basically. He looked at her journal.
Hmm.
He found her
She had
journal.
like a box of like keepsakes that had happened
Right.
with between her and Atlas, and in there is where he had written. He didn't write what in the interview that was in that magazine. It was in those
Okay.
notes.
So
Yeah.
this one is just, hey, saw this in the magazine, and obviously that led to the third abuse. Again, how did you feel about watching it and how it was handled?
I mean, me personally, I mean, my friends kind of watched the movie before I did, and I even asked how much are they showing because as a woman that I mean, I've not been affected by domestic violence, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still a woman and that sort of stuff is something that we fear every day. Like I get that. And because of that, I was like, I don't really want to see a ton. How much is really shown? And she said, enough to make you understand, but not enough that where you like, have you ever seen The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? That was a movie that I got up and left. Like, I'm not, no, thank you. I don't want to see anything like that.
Yeah.
So on a scale of those two, I think they did a great job kind of, and that's how the book was. It really painted the picture for you without going into a ton of detail because, we're not really here for.
Yeah. Now I'm actually curious. Like, I don't want to read the whole book, but I kind of want to fast forward to that scene because I want to see how she writes that because it's clearly different to watch something like that on screen than to read it in a book. Because you can only go so, I don't know. I mean, maybe it was written better than it was shown, but as you said,
You don't feel like you understood what was happening. Is that what you mean?
no, I understood it. I just want to see how a scene like that is written. Like before,
Yeah.
now that I've seen it play out with my eyes, I want to see
Yeah.
how a writer writes an
Painted that
attempted
picture.
rape scene. Yeah, and how you
Sure.
paint
Yeah.
the picture of
Yeah.
this scene of him taking advantage of her. But when I watched it, yeah, it was just, just as a man. And like I said, I've never been involved in any sort of domestic violence relationship either. But as a man, it was uncomfortable to watch that because I know it happens. And but it was right there where it didn't cross a line where I was like, okay, that was too much. It didn't need to go there. But it was good enough to where it got its point across.
Yeah, and I think that's part of them trying to be respectful towards the audience. Like whenever you show too much, you might alienate some girls who have really been through that sort of stuff and think, I don't want to see that. I'm comfortable watching this film, but it needs to be enough that I'm comfortable with, and I don't want to speak for those girls at all. But I feel like, this kind of gives them an opportunity to be a part of the movie too without feeling overly triggered by something that is, too much.
And I think that anybody that's been in a relationship like that, if they're choosing to go see this movie, they know what they're getting into. I can't imagine anybody that's been in a DV situation that went and saw this movie had no idea what they were about to go see. Because then I think they could have easily walked out and just been like,
Sure.
wait a second, this is what's happening? I'm done. I don't want to see this. But anybody that's been involved in one, I'm guessing knew what they were going into when they saw this movie and knew that there would be a scene that they would have to, that would probably trigger them. And, a couple scenes.
I have a question for you. So whenever you watched the trailer, did you kind of understand that that was what the movie was going to be about? Because I had seen some people saying if you didn't read the book and you watched the trailer, maybe you didn't know that that's what it was going to be. And it's hard for me to picture because I had read the book. So
all I knew about this movie was Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni were in a domestic violence relationship. That's all.
Did you learn that from the trailer or from reading articles?
I think reading articles. Okay. I don't even know if I'm sure I saw the trailer. I'm sure it was on, hell, it might have aired during an episode of The Bachelorette. I don't know, but it might have been, I can't even remember, honestly, if I saw the trailer. I'm sure I did, but I might not have just been dissecting it and paying such close attention to it. I think it might have been on, hey, Blake Lively's in a movie. Obviously, I'm going to perk up a little bit and watch it. But I was well aware of that. But I didn't know anything about her name, her infatuation with flowers and opening a flower shop and who Atlas was. And for me, going in, like I said, I knew there was domestic violence involved, but I also had no idea about an earlier love named Atlas. I just thought it was about, does a woman stay in a relationship that she has domestic violence involved in it? And it's about a woman in an abusive relationship that either decides to stay or decides to get out. I assumed as I was watching the movie, of course, that DV scene happens at least over an hour into the movie. It wasn't a surprise to me that she left him and eventually is going to end up with Atlas. Like, that wasn't some sort of major thing that I was like, whoa, that's a left turn. I thought, no, obviously I knew that she was going to leave him and eventually end up with Atlas, but that's not the movie. It's about getting to that point because she didn't leave him after abuse number 1. She didn't leave him after abuse number 2. It took that, and then it took the care of Atlas, and then her realizing, okay, I understand it now. So, yeah, it was really good.
It took a lot of conversations with her mom and a lot of healing with her mom in the book, and a lot of her having to let go of some shame of her thinking, like, how could I let this thing happen to me that I was so against, and she was really ashamed of it and didn't talk about it for a long time. But once she finally opened up, and I think a lot of it was his sister, like, I don't think that she really even expected that from her. And when she got it, it was like green light. Okay, we can do this. I don't have to lose you too.
Because after the first 2 instances, the burning in the oven and the push down the stairs, we never saw Lily talk to anybody about it.
No.
But in the book, I'm assuming she did. Does she bring it up to, I guess that's a question. Does she talk about it with any, you said it sounds like she spoke to her mother about it, or did she position it as, oh, it was an accident, or, oh, it wasn't a big deal?
No, she doesn't talk about it until she kind of is forced to. With Atlas is the first person that knows. But whenever people do, it's similar to the movie. And when that happens, she feels the support behind it and feels encouraged and strengthened to leave. And like when her mom tells her, it was harder to leave than it was to stay, I feel like that was the courage that she needed to go.
I had one final thing that I wanted to ask you about. The
Bachelorette?
No, about the movie. God, I should have written it down. It was, you had made a point, and I was like, oh, I want to ask her about that. So we talked about the ending. We talked about the abuse. We talked about the scene. We talked about the sister, or the best friend. I guess one thing, as I try and rack my brain about this thing that I wanted to ask you, was, we did talk about the romanticizing aspect of it, and that seems to be the biggest criticism. But again, it's like, I don't know how you promote a movie that's about, they have to do red carpet for it. It's not like they're all going to act all bummed on the red carpet about this depressing movie. They're telling people, and they're being very open about it when they talk about it. She gets very deep about the characters and stuff like this, but I don't know. I was surprised. I read 5 reviews and all of them were negative. And it wasn't like 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 stars or anything like that. It was just, for me, I don't give a shit what movie critics say. Like, let me I'll watch the movie and determine if I like it. I don't need you telling me whether or not I should like a movie or not. That seems so ridiculous, the idea of a movie critic. And I think movie critics, especially when it comes to something popular like this, something that's big in the pop culture zeitgeist, the tendency is to shit on it. And the tendency is to pick it apart because everybody is going in with these, oh, I can't wait to see it. And I don't know. I just feel like critics do that for movies that are supposed to be popular.
Yeah, well, it's because no one can let people just like things anymore. I feel like.
Then there's that. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I totally agree.
And sometimes, like what my grandma used to say, don't yuck anybody's yum, like and there's just certain things that people enjoy, and us girls, we like Colleen Hoover, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I love you to death. I listen to your podcast every day, but I don't listen to the Sports Daily. I'm sorry, but yeah. I don't. Also, you're talking a little bit too slow for me because I listen to you on 1.5. So if you could speed it up, that'd be great.
That's funny. I've never listened. The funny thing is, I know it exists. I know 1.25 exists. Mm-hmm. I know 1.5 exists. I know 2 times exists. I never listen to podcasts on faster speed. I don't know why. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. All of them are sports or gambling related, but I never listen to them like that. I don't know why. I realize
you should, and the book would go by faster.
Yeah, I guess I could listen to the book on audio and just speed it up, and it wouldn't take 9 hours. It'd take 4.5. For sure. But then I feel like I might miss stuff if I do that.
Well, that's why I'm going.
So, gosh, I wish I could have remembered this last one. I feel like everything that was covered in the article that I looked at that said the differences between the book, like it was the Ellen thing, the restaurant name, the ending, not in the book. She tells him, you touch me again, I'm leaving you. Wait, did we go over that or no?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did.
And that was different, but I feel like that was intentional to make you question how the abuse was going, which is instead, I think they did that instead of having to show the internal monologue that she was having. That's the only thing that makes sense there for me.
Was there something when this was first announced going into a movie and Blake Lively had signed on to play Lily? I might be mixing this up with another movie, but were people saying, who had read the book, oh, I don't see Blake Lively as Lily? Mm-hmm. Was there a backlash of, no, I don't want to see her as Lily. I don't.
It was her age.
There?
It was her age.
It was the age?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But and then they started talking about her clothes a lot.
Yeah. See, I had no issue with the age, just because I know I didn't read the book, and I know Lily's 23 in the book, and Ryle is 30 in the book, I think. And in this movie, it's 40 and 36. But I did read an interview with Justin Baldoni who said, like, I didn't want to do a domestic violence movie about a 23-year-old. I wanted to do it as someone who was an adult who had been through more in their life and whatnot. Oh, I remembered it. Yes. So apparently the book starts out, it opens with the rooftop scene. In the movie, it opened with her arriving home and the eulogy at her dad's funeral. Now, that's where a lot of Blake Lively mentioned in an interview that Ryan Reynolds wrote the rooftop scene. Mm-hmm. And the screenwriter for the movie said, I didn't even know that until Blake said that. So I don't know if he wrote the whole thing or just added some input and they ad-libbed some lines. But apparently the rooftop scene, it's one of the most pivotal things in the book, if not the whole movie. What did you think of the rooftop scene from book to movie?
I don't remember it being, I don't feel like that was the most pivotal part. I don't really.
I mean, it kind of
think
set up the movie of we were introduced to Ryle and
Yeah,
him.
and I mean, she kind of started thinking about him a ton after that.
Yeah.
But really, for me, the most pivotal part was whenever she put together that his sister, the girl that she had hired, that was her brother, because
Hmm.
she kind of started to feel like, oh, is this like serendipitous? Like, is this supposed to happen? He keeps showing up, and then kind of started to paint this fairy tale for herself about who this man is, and oh, he's a neurosurgeon, and he's got his shit together, and he's swept me off my feet, and he treats me so good. But how could this also be happening at the same time? And then the internal monologue goes off, and she starts like wrestling with herself with, the rest of the story. So I mean, that's, I think, subjective, but I also did read what you said about Ryan Reynolds writing that scene. And so I kind of watched it with that eye, and it did sound like his humor to me, the banter that they had.
Absolutely, it did, and it made
Mm-hmm.
sense when I read that. I also read that the book spent a little, and obviously it could because of time, had more time in the book, that she not teases, but it took her a lot longer in the book to even kiss Ryle, whereas in the movie there is some playful. She keeps him at an arm's length, and then they finally kiss, I believe, at the night of Alyssa's party. But in the book, it's a lot longer. She has him hold out because she knows that he's just after casual sex, and she's just
Well,
like,
and in the book, it hasn't been that long since she and Atlas kind of parted ways, because she's
that's
only
true because
23.
yeah, and in Atlas, they
That's
were
why
what,
he's still so
18?
important to her. Also, I feel like, I don't remember if it's mentioned or not, but I do know that she kind of had this thing with him that was like after the military, they were gonna, find each other and see how they wanted each other to live life. But if it happened to work out, and I think that she was kind of thinking that it was around that time. So he was on her mind a lot, and she really didn't have room for someone else yet.
I think in the movie, I think that maybe that was one thing that surprised me a little bit. I feel like I thought we were going to get a sort of send off of, and maybe it was possible I was too into my popcorn at one point, but I thought we were going to get some sort of send off of young Lily and young Atlas of, like you just said, her at like the bus station sending him off, like we see from a movie from the 1940s of, I'll always be here for you, or something along those lines. It didn't seem like there was any sort of send off. It was just, we knew he was leaving, during one of those flashbacks. They didn't do one, right?
I don't remember that, but it's likely, Kendra, if you're still watching, text me what happened, because I don't remember. But I feel like if that happened, it wasn't a huge deal. I do remember the part when her dad beat him up, and then the mom got him. That was a way bigger deal in the book. That
Yeah,
was really traumatizing for her.
And in the movie, it was a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it was towards,
that was a lot of time spent on that, and she referenced it going back often.
What about, now I'm trying to think of what I just saw in the movie yesterday. At what point in the movie did they show the dad beating up Atlas? When did we see that?
I think it was around the same time that she and Ryle finally started like being intimate with each other. It was like at the same time it was showing the back, flashback of like when she caved with him is the same time that she kind of,
Caved with him the first time they kissed?
No, like when she had sex with him. I think.
I think it was way after that. I thought it was way after that. I thought it was not until past the birth of the child. Because no, the when she was in the hospital, maybe it was during the hospital scene, because that's when we saw
maybe was how the book went, the way I'm remembering it.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant for the movie.
Yeah.
When did we see?
Yeah.
When did they show it for the first time? Because that I didn't know. Well, when we saw the flashbacks in the movie, we just saw her dad beating on her mother on the couch. They showed that a few times, and we see her witnessing it. But then the Atlas beating of him being bloodied and loaded into. I feel like that was later on in the movie part of it. But yeah, I'm sure it was handled in the book a lot earlier. Well, anyway, Kimry, thank you for coming on. It was 40 minutes with you. How about that? You were a 40-minute guest on this live stream. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. I'm so in the weeds about this now. I've been, like I said, I went on, watched all the reviews. I'm reading all the stuff online about the off-screen drama. I'm really into, like I said, I read the plot description of It Starts With Us. So I know now. I don't think I'm going to read either book or do an audiobook, but I am going to watch the second movie, and I'm looking forward to it because I feel like, this is, it's a big topic. And like I said, the people that are getting bent out of shape and saying that this movie is romanticizing domestic violence. And I'm just here to say, like, as someone who saw the movie and you who saw the movie, I just don't think it is. I don't think it's that way at all. I
am nervous though, that the way that this is going, and if the press, like, if they don't get it together, that it's going to push how long the next movie will come out. If, I don't want to film with you, I hate you.
Yeah, then there's that, because if you do a second movie, Justin Baldoni has to play Ryle. You have to have the same characters come back. You can't just replace him and have a new Ryle. It just, if he says, I don't want to be part of the second movie for whatever reason, then just don't make a second movie. Just leave it at this.
Sure.
And
I also thought, I don't remember why I thought this now, because it's been so long since I saw them start filming. For some reason, maybe the girls in the comments can help me remember why, but I thought the guys should have been switched. I think that the description of them, the way that they look, was supposed to be opposite of each other. And I remember having a big problem with that right when I found out who was casted, because I thought Ryle should have been Atlas and Atlas should have been Ryle. And I saw some other people talking about that now too. But now it's been so long, that didn't bother me at all either.
Who do you think is hotter, Ryle or Atlas? Like, who's I mean, they're both good looking guys, obviously.
Yeah.
And Ryle has about 1% body fat. I mean, Justin Baldoni is like
he
sculpted.
He does not look real life at all.
Yeah, I know. He just, like, literally, you could, I mean, talk
He's
about
a beautiful, handsome man. It looks like a Greek, statue or something, but that type of person is just like a little bit out of nowhere for me. Kendra's texting me and saying it's the voice on Atlas that gets him won over for the girls. So
he does the voice on Atlas. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
I thought they were both, like, it was too hard to picture him as anything but the monster that he was. And that, I think that shows that he did a really great job.
And I know this sounds bad, but I'll just say this, like, and maybe it's just because it was just a great way he played the character, but, and he's married, he's got kids. I'm sure he's a great father. I'm sure this isn't part of his life at all, but in the movie, it was believable to me. Like, he just looked like somebody who would be an abuser.
Did you notice how he mentioned that someone who looks like him, you never see him as a neurosurgeon? They're normally playing one on TV. Did you notice when he said that? Do you remember him saying that?
No, I don't.
It was when they were kind of like being flirty with each other. He was, and they were like about to kiss or something. He had mentioned that most of the time people that look like him, are just playing like a doctor on like a soap opera or something. And I felt like that was a good line for someone who didn't know what was coming to kind of like, oh, this guy really likes himself. He's really into himself. He really thinks he's really special.
Yeah. No, he was.
And he can have it all. He can do whatever he wants.
I've
lost you.